Good day, everybody. This is Etienne Marcel Pursuit, and welcome to another edition of Fighting Peaches. We will be joined by Georgia State softball head coach Becca Owens. As always, to follow everything that we do, head to the mothership, the sportsinquirer.net, premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. You can also head to our social media platforms on Twitter/X, Instagram, and Facebook. Just look us up under Etienne Marcel Pursuit or the Sports Inquirer. And finally, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our audio and video host, which include YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, and more. As I mentioned on this edition of Fighting Peaches, we're going to be joined by Georgia State softball head coach Becca Owens, and let's bring Becca on now. Okay, as I said, we're joined by Georgia State softball head coach Becca Owens. Becca, thank you for joining us on the road in your travels, and we'll get to where you are in a moment. But first, this is our first time talking with you this season,
Yeah.
first year with the Panthers. How has this first campaign been for you so far?
Well, first off, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy we got to, chat even in the midst of our travels. We literally we're an hour behind, but we still made it on. So I'm definitely thankful that you're having me on. And the beginning, it's good, honestly. We didn't really know, like when I first got the job, I didn't really know like what to expect in terms of the team and what we were gonna do and how things were gonna turn out, but I can tell you from the first weekend that we were in FAU till now, like we're a completely different team, and we've grown so much, like personally and on and off the field, but also just our overall like savviness of the game has literally grown exponentially, and it's really really cool to see.
What was that process like applying for the position, ultimately taking the job, and what was the appeal for becoming the head coach of the Panthers?
Totally. So the whole like process kind of turned out as Eric Paz, my like sports admin. He called me right as I think pretty sure it was right as we got done at regionals. I was at UCF last year in Orlando, and we had just got done at regionals in Tallahassee. And I think it was literally that next week he called, and we had a really good conversation about the team and kind of where their vision was and where they wanted to go with it. And I really liked Eric's background because he played, his wife is in like the Hall of Fame at Marshall, and she played pros, and he got to see her kind of go through that. And, we have a lot of like people in common and kind of like the systems, and we have very, very similar schools of thought. So it was super cool to like kind of talk to him and know that, our visions really aligned softball wise. So right after that, we did the Zoom, and then I came on campus, and I wasn't too sure about the job, but then I came on campus and I was like, okay, like this program definitely has potential. And after like talking with the girls and how passionate they were about Georgia State and passionate they were about softball, and the things that it was so crazy, the things that they were saying that they wanted and that they needed, it was literally in this, I made this like mock handbook, and every single like page I turned to was another thing they had already said. And so me and them are sitting together like, whoa, that's really weird. So it was kind of one of those things where it kind of all aligned perfectly. And in 2019, I was a volunteer at Georgia, so I was with UGA softball, and so I was familiar with the state, familiar with teams. I also coached like travel ball here, so I had some previous connections, and so it kind of all aligned. And I just think one of the things that like drew me to the team really is one, the Sun Belt Conference is amazing conference for softball. And that's really really exciting considering like the competitiveness and the challenge, like challenging that conference brings. And also the state of Georgia has immaculate talent, like the entire state is really really good at softball. So I think there's all these pieces that if we just put them together the right way, it could end up being pretty good.
Yeah, you mentioned the improvements the team has made, or maybe the steps that they've taken from the first weekend to now. As you get ready to open up Sun Belt play and continue in it, what are those improvements, or how has the team changed from your first regular season contest over a month ago?
Totally. I think one of the things I'm most proud of is just their fight overall. I'm not sure what they knew, like what punching back was to someone, right? And something about me is you have to know I am as resilient as they come. I never give up, and it's mostly in part to my competitive nature. And so there was a piece where I had to challenge them a lot to like, hey, they scored one run, they scored two runs. I don't give a crap, right? Like we could be down 15 runs, and in my heart, we still have a chance to win. And so I kind of had to like teach them, like, guys, this is what it looks like to fight back. This is what it looks like to punch back, and not just individually striving for that, but as a team. Like, how do we do that as a team? How do we believe in the next person to get it done, even when I'm not getting it done. And that was, I think, one of our biggest challenges. But, with our midweek and Mercer, literally yesterday, I guess it was, they scored 4 runs. We ended up losing, but they scored 4 runs in the first inning. And that would have been something in the beginning of the season where we just instantly deflated and kind of thought, well, they scored 4 runs, like, okay, like game over. And that definitely wasn't the case for us. And we just kept punching back. We ended up hitting back-to-back home runs, which honestly we never do. And we ended up just kind of like chipping away. And like I said, we ended up losing, but the amount of fight that I saw was so encouraging. I was like, wow, I'm so proud of these girls for knowing and learning and applying how to punch back. That was one of the coolest things. And there's always little things like the game of softball. You have to actually play it. Fall games are one thing, but it's like, okay, at the plate, how do we execute plans? When our pitches are up there, how are we going to be tactful with each one, and what are our game plans for people? And getting them comfortable with going out there with a plan and not having them overthink it. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned offensively in the back home runs. That's a rarity. But I just looking at the flow of the season, just statistics, triples have been a big part of the offense, which is unique.
Totally.
'Cause if for a softball, it's pretty hard just to let the field and just the setup of the everything. What
Totally.
about the triples and just is it just a roster? Is that something you train for to because you say
Yeah.
you're not hitting home runs, but you're still trying to get extra bases? How do you practice or execute that?
What's been crazy about it is we have so much speed. So a lot of the times when those kids with a lot of speed, they either get it in the gap or they get like, that unique spot down the line. They're basically just flying. And that's one of the really, really cool parts about our teams is we're so fast and we have practiced so well for an action offense, right? That's hit and runs, button runs, steals. And so when those kids that are fast end up sneaking it through or sneaking it down the line, that's where you see a lot of those triples come from. And I was literally just looking at it last time. I'm like, dang, 6 is a lot of triples. I'm like, that's kind of impressive for us.
Yeah, no, it really is. And you've had some offensive leaders, with the team with Sydney. Well, Sydney on the circle, but Chloe and Maya. Just what about the just overall offensive attack and what you've been able to do? You mentioned the triples. What have you been able to do well, and what are you looking to improve on? As you get towards this portion of the season offensively.
Totally. I think, it kind of goes back to one of those things where in the beginning we didn't really have it. And now we're finally starting to execute on it. One, that fight. What does fight come with? Aggression. When you're at the plate, we were so passive until about 2 weeks ago. And then they just kind of were like, all right, here we go. I had to like learn how to free them up and let them loose and be okay with that passion and that fight out there. And that a lot of that in the box is hard to show because it's pretty vulnerable. But we had to get them to a place where they could be aggressive. And now that we're being aggressive, you know, we're executing our offensive plans a lot better than we were in the beginning. They finally understand offensive plans. Like, this is what we're going to do on this kid. This is what we're going to do on this kid, and not letting it freeze them up. Right. So, a plan is your best friend. It's not your worst enemy. It's what we're trying to teach them. And I think that within the last 2 weeks, I could say that they definitely have made a stride and made a turn there. I think that what we're looking for now offensively is someone with a lot of consistency. Like I always joke, I'm like, man, our 8-hole always hits home runs. Like, what's up with that? And then we switch them out, and then they're nowhere to be found. But it's just one of those things where because we're a new staff and because it's a new system, it's basically like we have 22 freshmen on our team. And that's kind of one of those things that come with freshmen, right? The lack of consistency because they're learning how to manage their own emotions with their successes and their failures. And that's kind of what you see with our offense. I think going forward, we're going to be a lot more consistent because we've kind of learned like, okay, when I strike out 3 times, it's not the end of the world. And this is how I operate when I do that. So definitely looking for some consistency. What I want to continue is just, again, our action offense. We're really fast. We can do button runs. We execute hit and runs really well. A lot of our right-handers, right, which is rare. A ton of our right-handers can bunt and get on, and we'll be good with a single right that. So that's definitely our niche right there.
Yeah, and then what about in the circle? Just finding that consistency with pitching. Is it the same approach? You have just a lot of younger players just trying to find themselves, and how do you improve on that part of the game as you progress through the year?
Totally. I said this, and maybe every coach says this. I was like, man, our ERA is not really reflecting how I feel like they're doing. Because if you look at everyone's stats, like literally, if you go Bulwer, Hodnett, Stevens, if you look at Kate, if you look at all of their stats and compare them to last year, they're way better. If you look at the strikeouts, look at the batting average against, look at the base on balls, look at the wild, they're way, way, way different. And so once you take away that ERA, like if you don't stop there, you can kind of see their improvements. And what I like about it is they're starting to step into their own. Whereas like Kate, 3 weeks ago, she finally pitched her first 7 inning game. And she said that was my entire college goal, was to pitch a 7 inning game. And at this point, she's pitched two. And Mac is going out there. Mac has, Michaela Stevens, she has an opportunity to be great, honestly. And what she just needs to go out there and start getting comfortable, right? And being comfortable with those around her, being able to rely on her defense. But we have the makings and the mound of great things. What we have to do is get them comfortable, right, with their great stuff. What they have, what they work well with, how they're going to rely on the defense and not put too much pressure on themselves, but rather pitch the ball over the white and get an out kind of thing. I think something you see from them is they just want to do it themselves.
Yeah,
But we got
for
defense.
sure. Yeah, and just overall, is now you head into facing you're on in the road in Monroe, Louisiana to face Louisiana-Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
Just where do you think the team is overall? Just as far as you see the record of win and loss, but you're
Mm-hmm.
now in conference play, which is the crucial part of the year. Just how are you feeling with the flow of the team overall as you now enter this crucial part of the regular season?
Mm-hmm, totally. So we just ended phase one, right? That's all preseason. Now we're going into phase two, which is conference play. The cool thing about conference play is we're 0-0 in conference play. And that's kind of the attitude we take. Everything that we learned in preseason, all those lessons, all the fight, all the aggression, all the trying to play as a team, all of those things, we're going to take those lessons into conference. We're going to leave all the bad stuff behind. And I'm really encouraged. The thing about me and my personality is I'm always encouraged. It's really, really hard to discourage me because I always think we
I
have a
can see
shot.
that.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I tell the girls this all the time. I'm like, you guys, there's a point of being successful where you have to be
Yeah.
like delusionally confident and delusionally positive in what you're doing every day. Right. And all the great people say that, but I literally that is who I am, to the point where, again, I could be being run ruled in the bottom of the 6th inning and be like, nah, we're good. Like we can hit 10 runs. That's cool. We're good.
Yeah.
But again,
Is
I've
that
always,
approach is that approach important? Sorry to cut you off there,
no, it's
but
good.
obviously it's the first year with Georgia State, a program that you said has a lot of potential, but has had minimal success just the past few years. Is that attitude important not only for the players you maybe that stuck around, but then also newcomers? Is this approach just really important because there are going to be some struggles as you build this program from where it currently is to, I'm sure, where you want it to be?
Right. Now, I think honestly, that's like the really cool part about this program and me kind of coming in this program is that's my superpower. And that seems to be just what they needed in terms of like, okay, they're discouraged by the years that they had. They're discouraged that, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they were a super successful program. And they haven't really been able to shift the mindset of like, okay, clearly we have the makings of great things. We just have to put the pieces together. And so that kind of being one of my superpowers, I can see big picture here, right? So you look at the record and you're like, oh, that's discouraging. I'm like, well, not really. If you look at the small details, if you look at the things, to me, it's encouraging because I've seen so much growth in between. I'm able to hold on to those things and carry that through. The season is long, right? The season is a marathon. So I'm able to hold on to those things and let those carry me through, right? And so for these kids who are learning how to do that, the fact that they're looking at a leader that can do that, that helps them be like, oh, maybe we can do this. Like, oh, yeah, I think she might be right, And I think a testament to that is Chloe Middlebrook. She was like, at FAU, I struck out 6 times looking. I never swung the bat one time. And you still believed in me. And for some reason, you still thought I could do it. And now you see her as one of our leaders, like our top offensive leaders, which that was the belief I had in her. But she was able to dig herself out of that hole because I'm not over here telling her she sucks. I'm not over here telling, oh my gosh, now one of our best offensive players is going to suck all year long. No, I'm like, dude, you're fine. You're fine. Relax. Let's go. Let's move on. Let's leave those at bats in FAU and let's figure out how we can help you. And I think that's just been huge for the team. And again, that works out for me because it's my superpower. So I'm not over here like striving and trying to be fake. And it's nothing I can't do. It's kind of just how I'm wired.
Yeah, well, I can hear the energy over here right now. But now Monroe itself, just facing them, just being on the road. I was just first road. We've had a road contest, but first time in the conference on the road.
Mhm.
Just how preparation's been going. I know you just had the Mercer game, but just how's the team looking and getting in a form for your matchup against Louisiana-Monroe this weekend?
Honestly, we're really, really excited. We practiced on Tuesday, Mercer, right, which is always a great game, in-state rivalry right there, which is great preparation because if you think about going into conference, it's like you play your rival every weekend, right? And for some reason, you have beef with everybody, but it's just because again, the Sun Belt is so competitive. So going into this weekend, that's kind of where our mindset is like, okay, we understand conference is long. We understand that we have the prep already done. Like we have checked that box. We've learned our lessons we need to learn. Now we're going to go into conference play and we're ready to basically show out our skills. We're ready to fight. It's one game a day. We understand that we can give everything we got. When it comes to Monroe, this is a really well coached team. This is a coaching staff that has put together a good group of girls that you can see in the fundamentals in the way that they play, right? Coach Molly has done a great job. And I'm excited about that. I love playing against good coaches. I love going out there and battling. I think it's going to be a really good test for us. And we're pumped. I'm pumped, and I think the team is just ready to go out there. And they're like, "All right, we're looking to conquer phase 2 of this season," and they're ready to roll.
Well, Becca, we appreciate you taking some time off of from the road and your travels, and we'll be following you throughout the season. Hopefully, we'll catch up again. And much luck and success to you on your matchup against Monroe this weekend.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And that was Georgia State softball head coach Becca Owens. You heard the energy, heard the enthusiasm. Very impressed with that. I said the Panthers are opening up Sun Belt play on March 14th at Louisiana-Monroe. We will have some thoughts and analysis of that matchup when we do our next show or two. But until then, to follow everything that we do, head to the mothership, to sportsinquirer.net. Premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. We just published our inclusive interview with Georgia State baseball head coach Brad Stromdahl as the team prepares to host South Alabama this weekend as well. So make sure you head to the site and check that out. You can also go to our social media platforms on Twitter/X, Instagram, and Facebook. Just look us up under Etienne Marcel Pursuit or the Sports Inquirer. And finally, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our audio and video host, which include YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, and more. Just look us up to all of those platforms. Once again, this is Etienne Marcel Pursuit with this latest edition of Fighting Peaches. Until next time, good fight, good night, and be safe.